Hey guys, welcome to this session by Intellipaat. Blockchain has been one of these technologies that is aiming to replace databases across the globe. That is how big blockchain has become, right? So, with this came a huge demand for proficient blockchain developers. And in this session, we're going to discuss the top blockchain interview questions and answers that you can use for your preparation in the interviews. So guys, before we begin with the session, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so that you'll never miss any updates from us. Well, coming to the agenda of the session, we're going to start out by understanding what blockchain is and how secure is blockchain. Next, we can check out all the questions related to how ledgers work, how security methods are implemented when data is sent across the network, and a lot more. So make sure to use this guide to understand how you can approach these questions effectively and how you can answer them to the best of your ability as well. Well guys, without further ado, let's begin the class.
So coming to the first question on this blockchain interview questions and answers, said it is compare blockchain with relational database. Well, whenever we think about comparing a blockchain with relational databases, 4 points are very important to be discussed. The first thing is the unit of data. In a blockchain, the data is stored in entities called as blocks, while in the relational database management system, it's stored in the form of tables. And then the second thing when we talk about is the point of failure. In a blockchain, there does not exist a single point of failure which might end up catastrophically. But then when you think about RDBMS, there are many points where if it fails, things can end up completely bad. Now, when we're talking about the third point, it's centralized control. In blockchain, there is no such thing as centralized control. The data is maintained in the form of ledgers and then it's worked on based on that. And of course, when you're thinking about RDBMS, you do have the database management system and the admin who sits as the centralized control admin basically working on the data. And then when you're thinking about editing and deleting data as per you wish, in the case of a blockchain, that is absolutely not possible because again of the ledger, the hyperledgers and the data scheme that blockchain is built upon. But then when you think about a relational database, yes, it is possible to add data, edit it, modify it, and of course delete it as and when you require. Here again, in both places, there are many authorization techniques and safety measures that are put into place, but at the end of the day, it is possible very easily to change data in your RDBMS. Now, coming to the second question, it's what is blockchain technology? Well, you do have to know the answer to this in a clear and a concise way, because if you're at a blockchain interview, there is a very good chance you can get carried away with this answer, but then try to keep it very concise. See, a blockchain is nothing but a very simple incorruptible ledger that consists of multiple transactions that happen over the web. All of these transactions actually get recorded or they get programmed, right? It doesn't have to be a financial transaction, but it can be anything that can be put down in a text editor. You can have ledgers of these, you can have all the data stored in it, and you will have multiple copies of the data across multiple ledgers to make sure that even if there is one entity that fails in a blockchain, the rest of the chain has the data backed up such that it can pick it up and begin work, and in fact continue work without having any disruptions as well. So the technology that allows for this is blockchain, and it's been one of the most revolutionary technologies of our time, and it was made very popular to us by a cryptocurrency called as Bitcoin, and more on this in the next couple of questions. Now, moving on to question number 3, it states, what do you mean by blocks in the blockchain technology? Whenever we refer to blocks, right, understand this. A block is simply a list that consists of the records of data that's present in it. Whenever these lists are combined with each other, right, when there are more than one list, they're called as blockchains. The chain of blocks, right? A block contains a list of records. There are multiple lists. These lists individually become a block and eventually becomes a blockchain. It is as simple as that. Let's say, for example, there's an organization that has, let's say, 100 ledger books, a combination of which we entirely call it as blockchain. But then with these 100 ledger books, if you start picking it up one by one at a time, right? So there will be 100 different blocks, and there's one entity that's called as a blockchain that consists of these 100 ledger books. It's just a way of naming it, but then this is how it goes. It's a very important thing that you should know at this point in time. Moving on to question number 4, it states, how is a block recognized in the blockchain approach? Well, when you think about these blocks, this list, the amount of data that gets stored into it, all of these blocks has something called as a hash pointer. These hash pointers basically link to the block, and it makes sure that it has a link between the previous block, the transaction time in case if there's a transaction that happened in the data, and of course a very clear and a concise way of stating the block. There was a transaction at this point in time, this date, up to milliseconds as well. So whenever having the recognition of a block is in concern, think about talking about a hash pointer and how it links one entity in the block to another, and any transactions performed in a block will be recorded with the timestamp of the transaction. Now, moving on to the fifth question, it states, is there any network specific conditions for using blockchain technology in an organization? But then when you think about it, right, it has to be a peer-to-peer network, and it has to have all of the wired protocols to ensure a lot of safety parameters and continuous connection from end to end. So what it really does is it validates the new block simply and helps the companies or helps the people who are willing to start up, this kind of a blockchain and bring it into their organization. It does it very easily because you really do not require any sort of third-party application. You really do not require any sort of expensive hardware to get started, to be honest. But then having the network is a basic requirement. So do talk about having the network and the protocols that govern the blockchain technology. But then do understand that there are no specific or expensive solutions to a blockchain requirement while beginning. Now, moving on to question number 6, it states, is it possible to modify the data once it is written in a block? Once a data gets written into a block in the technology of blockchain, the answer is no. It cannot be changed, because if you require any sort of customization or change or modification, all of the data that's present in all of the blocks must be removed, and then whatever modified data is there, it has to be put in to all the blocks. This is one very important reason that forms to be the entire foundational concept of blockchain, because at the end of the day, data is extremely cared for in a blockchain technology aspect. And here, when you're doing this, if you just modify it in one block and leave it, it really doesn't work, because blockchain doesn't work that way. So if you have to change something, you have to change throughout the entire blockchain architecture that exists, and then only you can have your new data or modified data to be present in a block. So when you're asked this question, make sure to present yourself this way. Now, coming to question number 7, it states, what type of records can be kept in a blockchain? Are there any restrictions for the data that are kept in a blockchain? Again, a very straightforward question. This is a very, very important question that gets asked a lot. Well, the answer is no for the second part of it. Is there a restriction to store any sort of data? No, you can store whatever is required, but then you must note, what you have stored, because at the end of the day, storage can be limited sometimes, because, technology, it works in a way where records get duplicated multiple times to make sure that your data redundancy is kept in check, and it is very much required to keep your data safe. So in that particular case, even though there is no restriction, it is always very valid to take care of the data that you put into a ledger. Now, what are the common types of records that are usually put in? Think about medical transaction, think about identity management, right? So, in India, we have something called as the Aadhaar. In America, you have something called as the Social Security. In America, you have something called as the SSN, or the Social Security number, and more. And then you have the transaction processing details, you have organizational details, management activities, key documentation events, and a lot more. So when all of these data are concerned, you might be asking a question of saying, is this all? Can I store only 6 types of data? No, because as I just mentioned when at the start of this answer, you can store whatever you want, but practically blockchain is used for this purpose. Now, with this, moving on to the 8th question, it states, what is encryption and what is the role of encryption in blockchain? Encryption, as you might know it, is a method you use to keep your data safe by changing its format or by changing something in a way where it doesn't give out what it's meant to for the naked eye. You can have a lock-and key system, you can have multiple ciphers, you can have multiple methodologies that you can use to encrypt your data. So whenever you're encoding a data, you're converting it from one kind of a format to another, where you can have it sent out through the network then, and then having the ability to know that someone in the network can capture your data and may misuse it is very important, because if you just send the data as it is, someone sitting in the middle of it during a phishing attack or whatever it is can take up all of your data and misuse it, right? So that's not what we want. So to avoid all of this, so we encode the data in a very strict way, in a way where only the receiver knows how the original data can be obtained from whatever was sent. This process is called as decoding the data, and doing this will make sure that there's overall security, your blocks are valid, and of course at the end of the day your entire blockchain is kept secure because of this. So at this point in time, it's very important that you understand encryption and you know how it works whenever data moves around in blocks, especially in the case of blockchain. Now, coming on to the ninth question, it says, what exactly do you know about the security of a block? Here's a very important question, and the answer to it is very simple. A block cannot be customized by all of the users on a network. It's only on priority authorization is required, and this authorization methodologies and protocols that are put into place will make sure that your data security is at top notch. That is, it has an excellent level of security. And when you're thinking about every single block, right, each of these blocks can be secured using cryptography, where you can have a lot of methodologies put into place where the organization or the person maintaining the blockchain really need not break his or her head about the security of the data, because at the end of the day, if it's in a blockchain structure, it's secure. Plus added parameters for the network makes it even more secure, and then individual block level cryptography methodologies will make sure the data is almost bulletproof in the network of a blockchain. Now, coming to the 10th question, it states, why blockchain is a trusted approach? There are many reasons why one would go on to trust a blockchain, and here is why. The first thing what happens is that it is compatible straight with any other business application. One, because blockchain is open source. Second, as we discussed, it's completely secure. And third, even if it was intended originally for online transactions, developers have paid a lot of attention, especially to the field of security, because in today's world, cybersecurity, keeping your data safe, and all of these are primary concerns, right? So to make sure all of this is put into place, no matter what business you own, no matter if it's an online business, no matter if it's a medical institution, or whatever you can think of that you're planning to implement blockchain into, do understand that the data will be secure. It's open source, so you really don't have to put in a lot of money at the start, and if you have proficient developers who can handle it, then you will have a very effective chain and moving your data from one point to the other. So a blockchain is easily considered because of all of these factors, but the primary one being security, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the 11th question, it states, what is secret sharing? Does it have any benefit in blockchain technology? So coming to the answer of this question, whenever we talk about secret sharing, right? Secret sharing is basically an approach that we take where we divide the personal information, whatever data that is being shared into multiple units, and then we send it across to the individual users. So by doing this, what we're trying to do is that we're having the original information, and it can only be decoded when a member wants to share the secret, and all of them actually agree to share this particular data in secret, then only the data can be pulled out. By doing this, again, blockchain is proving that whenever it comes to security, it is in high regard. It brings out multiple advantages, especially in the world of security related technologies, and blockchain is at the top of it. So having your data sent out separately and having a common consensus to whom the data has to be shared to, and to when, where, what, why, and all of these other questions as well. So to do this, it has multiple benefits, and this is how secret sharing works. Now, coming to question number 12, it states, what is blockchain durability and robustness? I think by now you might have a clear picture of blockchain's robustness, because data is secure. If it goes in one of the blocks, it can be revived from the other blocks as well. And when you're thinking about durability and security wise, I think you already know how to approach those questions. Now, what happens is that whenever we have data in similar blocks where it's spread across a network, you can control all of these from one particular entity. It'll absolutely have no single point of failure, right? So think about a quick example about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was a cryptocurrency that was invented in 2008, and since then it has been working fine, and it's driving a lot of businesses without having any sort of significant disruption, right? If there is any problem that ever came with Bitcoin, mostly it was because of mismanagement, or let's say unethical hacking, and other simple things such as probably bad intentions or human errors. But then there is absolutely zero flaws in how Bitcoin works. So the internet itself, when you think about it, has been durable for like what, 30-40 years now, and it's a track record that blockchain is willing to beat and work together as well, because in terms of security there is no beating blockchain. It is very durable and it is highly robust, especially for storing your data and moving it across the web. Now, coming to the 13th question, it states, what is transparent and incorruptible in blockchain? Well, one thing that you really have to know is that in the blockchain technology, right, all of the data gets stored into multiple blocks, and every time there is a check-in that happens to see if the data is all right or not. So whenever you have a self-auditing ecosystem like this, right, the network has to look back to check if each of the data is okay in every single span of time, and this is usually a 10-minute interval. And since each of these group of transactions is called as a block, there are two very important properties of a block that we have to discuss. One is that data is very transparent, because in general it is actually a public piece of data. In general, it's the whole data that's being sent. And the second thing about it being incorruptible is that no matter what, blockchain data cannot be corrupted, because it takes a huge amount, in fact an extreme amount of computing power to get a hold of the entire network that is working and then hijack it and mess with your data. This is literally not possible, but then this is literally not possible or very far-fetched even for people who would want to misuse your data. So in that case, data is very transparent and it is almost incorruptible in the case of blockchain. Now, coming on to the 14th question, it says, how does Bitcoin make use of blockchain? If you ever mention Bitcoin as a part of your answer, there's a very good chance this question can be asked as a follow-up. So what happens in the case of Bitcoin is that there are multiple wallets that users get assigned to, and each of these users with each of these wallets can have a part of the transaction, can have some data stored into them, and all of these data are stored in a ledger. So what these wallets do is that they have a piece of data called as a private key, or also what we call as a Bitcoin seed, and with this seed we sign transaction, we show proof saying that I am the owner of the particular wallet, and then whatever cryptocurrency has to be moved, whatever amount of cryptocurrency has to be moved, it gets moved around from one particular ledger to another, or one block to another as per requirement. Mostly it's the cryptocurrency moving from one person's wallet to another person's wallet by making use of the seed. But then when you think about it, there are many ways one can move money in the case of Bitcoin, but the basic working of it, the foundational concept of it, remains the same. So when you ask this question, make sure to answer it this way. Now, coming on to the 15th question, it states, is blockchain an incorruptible ledger? Well, as the developer claim stands, blockchain cannot be corrupted no matter what, because at the end of the day, the technology is built to be extremely robust and it offers state-of-the-art security methodologies in terms of your data, in terms of whatever governs the data as well. So if you're asked this question saying, can we corrupt a blockchain? The answer should be a very straightforward and a confident no, because that's what the technology is put into place for, to be incorruptible and to be highly secure. Is it doing that? Well, yes, since a very long time, blockchain has been growing out to be an amazing open source technology that is helping keep our data safe and secure across a network as well. So in that particular case, blockchain is uncorruptible. Now, when you're thinking about the 16th question, it states, what are the business benefits of a blockchain? See, you can talk about this answer to this particular question for a long time, but then try to keep it very concise, because there are multiple business benefits of a blockchain, right? So you can have your data in a consolidated place. It can be consistent. All of the errors in your data can be kept minimal. You can verify your data and see if it's present. You will have authority of your data. You will know where the data is moved from the origin to the place, if it's a shared ledger, if it's a common ledger, and of course at the end of the day you will understand that there is a good amount of trust and integrity in the flow of transaction of information that happens in a blockchain, because no one can get on a blockchain and misuse your data, as I mentioned, right? And then when you're thinking about immutability, immutability means that you cannot change the data once it gets into your ledger, and this will make sure that there is a very good amount of transparency and people cannot go on to misuse data by changing something of value there, and then that leading to a catastrophe as well that cannot be done. And it's not just this, because let's say contracts are executed on business networks. Whenever you think about blockchain, all of these technologies that govern the blockchain is smart, it's automated, and mostly these businesses that impart blockchain have seen that they get an extremely high amount of speed of execution when they have used blockchain. The overhead costs are reduced, and of course their entire chain is at less risk, because at the end of the day, this is what businesses want, and this is what blockchain offers. So it's a win-win at the end of the day, especially when talking to clients, when interacting with their data. And sometimes, not sometimes, when you think about it, 99.9% of the time data is confidential, right? In the case of businesses, this is where blockchain can help. Moving on to the 17th question, it says, what are blockchain requirements? See, one thing you have to understand is that blockchain is one of these technologies that took the world by storm, right? Because it is transforming the way we, in fact, send data across networks. And once this innovation started to happen, and since it's open source, many companies wanted to invest their time and efforts into seeing how they can best make use of this, right? So IBM was one of these companies to contribute a little bit of code to what we call as the Hyperledger project. And from what they say, the people at IBM, industrial grade blockchain technologies have multiple characteristics that make it bulletproof. For example, if you have a shared permission ledger in, let's say, an SOR, or what we call as a system of record, and a source of truth, it is made sure that your data can be seen by all of the participating members of the business network with complete transparency and good amount of security as well. And then when you have a common protocol that's agreed by all of the members in the network, right, this means that your network will only get updated, the data in your network will only get updated when there are network verified transactions. No one can slip in any amount of data into your network. It has to come from a verified source, and it will. Now, the third thing that IBM people say is that there's good amount of cryptography that makes sure that your data is even more secure. It is tamper proof. Authentication is required. All of your transaction that happens is 100% with integrity. So there is no messing around with data when it comes to blockchain. So at the end of it, there are many things that make a blockchain structure very important, very rugged, and a practical piece to be used in an industry level as well. So in that particular case, and then coming on to the 18th question is very important, because you have to know that this is a commonly asked question in a blockchain interview. It says, how can you stay up to date with the new and upcoming concepts in blockchain? One very important thing here is that the interviewer is trying to see your interests in the field of blockchain, your ability to learn new things. It may be complex things or simple things, and of course, how effectively can you learn these and use them in a production environment. So make sure you talk about the way that you used to learn new things, and how you plan to see if it's right or not for you, and of course at the end of the day, how you plan to practically implement it, right? See, all of the IT concepts in today's world has been put to place to solve particular problems. In the case of blockchain, I think you would know by now, it's security, it's to make sure your data is rugged, and to make sure that no one can mess with your data. Now, to do all of these, how can you practically implement the solution to a problem by working on blockchain? What have you learned, where have you learned it from, and how best can you add value to the person who's hiring to your company? So when you think about it, right, this is what is required as an answer to this particular question. So talk about how you research new things. It might be reading blogs, it might be attending conferences, or whatever it is that takes to understand and learn the new and upcoming concepts in the field of blockchain. Now, coming on to the 19th question, it states, do you have any experiences working in the same industry as ours before? This question is a frequent one, and if you are a fresher, this question might not apply for you because you might be just out of college. But even if you're a fresher or an experienced person, here's how you can answer this. If you have any sort of previous experiences either in your college or any sort of internship or any environment where you have worked on a current industry, right? So you can be working on building a blockchain architecture for a hospital, for a social media, or whichever industry that you've just applied to. So think about the company you applied to, think about what they do, see if you have done anything similar. If you have not done anything similar, even though your experience experience. Do not say no. That's not the way to answer. One very important thing you really have to know is that you can talk about whatever you have done and tell them how you plan to bring that experience to this industry as well. There are many things where technologies or techniques that can be trickled down from one technology into the other, where they can outshine their previous technologies as well. So in that particular regard, make sure to talk about your previous experiences, all the tools you've used, all the techniques that you have implemented, all the problems you've solved, even though it might be not part of the same industry. And if that is the case, talk about how you will bring about the change and how you will bring about furnishing yourself in a way where you will bring that experience to help this particular industry. Now, coming on to the last question, it says, have you earned any sort of certification to improve your learning and implementation process in the field of blockchain? Certifications are very, very, very important in the field of blockchain, and not just blockchain, in any technological field, right? Because for you as a learner, you will get a lot of knowledge, you will get hands-on experience, you will be trained by professionals, you will become experts, and you will become thorough in all of the concepts that you're learning. But how does it matter to an interviewer? See, an interviewer will want to understand that you're very serious about your career, that you want to build your career in that particular domain that you're certified in, and it shows if you're certified that you have a strong aspiration to learn maybe new things. See, you can be coming from a background of cooking, you might be coming from a background of architecture, from marketing, whatever it is into the world of blockchain. If you are certified by a reputable firm, it means that you have put in your time and your effort to learn new things. This shows that you're an effective learner and that you have a passion to go about doing this. So, it's one very important thing that whenever you talk about certifications, is firstly list all the certifications in a very quick way, telling the interviewer what you have done. And instead of talking about what these certifications are, please talk about what you learned from it and how it's been helpful in implementing a solution to a problem. It might be that you have worked on practical use cases, it might be that you have worked on industry level case studies, or whatever it is. Do talk about how you have driven value out of a certification program. A certificate is something that you can have for multiple purposes, and the most important thing is that you use it to solve problems that we have today, right? So in that particular regard, more than talking about what certifications, talk about how you've used these certifications.
We hope this session was very informative for you all. If you have any other questions you'd like to add or any comments in general, make sure to head down to the comment section and do let us know there. So on this note, we wish you all the very best for your preparation to become experts in blockchain, and we hope this video helped you out thoroughly. So with this, I wish you best of luck and I'll see you on the next one.